Hi, my name is Craig Case. I'm one of the instructors in CAPS GS, and this is our week 3 devotional. And the topic is going to be on honesty. And honesty is apropos for us in week 3 of ENGL225R because on a few of the assignments you'll notice the emphasis on setting sources and making sure that you don't plagiarize. That is, using material from sources where you don't cite them or note them. And it's not unusual for us today to hear about a pastor or an author or a noted politician that borrowed material without giving proper credit and is accused of plagiarism. And that's a very serious charge. When it comes to the academic process, we need to make sure that we have the value of honesty. I'm reminded in the New Testament book of Luke, chapter 16, verse 10, Jesus says, if you're not faithful in the small matters of life, you won't be faithful in the large ones. So maybe when it comes to research, when it comes to writing down a sentence or two from a source, it may seem like a small matter, but it's really an opportunity for you to be trustworthy, to be faithful in using that and giving credit to that. Also in the book of Proverbs, in the Old Testament, the writer says this in chapter 12, verses 19 through 22. Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment. Deceit is in the hearts of those who plot evil, but those who promote peace have joy. No harm overtakes the righteous, but the wicked have their fill of trouble. Now notice verse 22 here. The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. I love that last verse because honesty is a very important ethic, not only for life, but also as a children of God. It's something that God finds very important. He doesn't like deceit. He doesn't like lying. And when it comes to using sources in our essays, and if we don't cite them, what we're really doing is passing off an essay as if it's our own words. In fact, this devotional that I'm sharing with you actually comes from Charles Swindoll, a noted pastor in Texas, and also a blog called rejuvenate.org. And what I like about both sources is that both of them emphasize the importance of honesty. And Rejuvenate notes this: it's obvious that honesty and truthfulness are important in our lives. In fact, these verses show that to really live life the way God wants us to, that we need to be honest. When we're honest, when we're truthful, it'll prosper us, it'll bless us, and it'll make our families proud. And as children of God, we're called to be people of truth. And while it's incredibly important for us to be honest people in the workforce, with our friends, with our family members, with significant others, with our children, it's also important for us to be honest with ourselves. So in our class, when we turn in work, and we're actually writing as if the words that we have are our own words, it's not only showing honesty to an instructor, but it's also being honest with ourselves. Are these really my words? Because in order for truth to come out of our lives, we need to have the truth inside of us. We need to have that value. And I want to encourage you to really consider that in your life. It's interesting, Twin Cities psychologist William Backus says that on the average, an American will lie over 200 times a day. 200 times a day. And that's everything from an outright lie to what we call white lies, to an embellishment, to small fabrications. But I want to encourage you, as you're in ENGL225R, is to stop yourself the next time you try to embellish something. For example, I had a friend of mine, a pastor, who told a story one time about a pileup of cars, an accident that he was involved in. In his sermon, he said, I was involved in this pileup of cars where there were 7 cars. And he went on to tell the story of all the damage that was done to all these cars. And a good friend of his, who actually heard that story from this pastor immediately after it happened, told him after the sermon, he said, Bill, was it really 7 cars? I thought it was 3. And the pastor, confessed and apologized for that. And he just shared that there's something inside of us where we want to appear better than we actually are. And I find that in writing and in academic work that we want to impress a professor. We want to impress an instructor. We want to earn that A. And as a result, we may find the temptation to pass on work that's really not our own. I also like in the Bible, in the New Testament, where the Apostle Paul, a person that really tried to live a life of truth. He writes this in the book of Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25. Let me read this. So put away all falsehood and tell your neighbor the truth because we belong to each other. What I like about this is that Paul emphasizes to put away falsehood, almost like it's an old article of clothing. Clothing perhaps that you used to wear, but now it's out of style, and that we need to put on truthfulness instead. And for us, we want to embrace that truthfulness, to put away all falsehood. So if you and I are serious about changing the deepest, darkest parts of our lives, we need to overcome the fear of being honest. Maybe the next time where you find yourself sort of abbreviating something or holding back on something with a trusted friend or family member, maybe push yourself to go the extra 10% and tell the entire truth. It's amazing when that happens. It's amazing what you feel inside of you and how pure and right you feel. You feel pure and right because that's the way God made you. God made you to be truthful. And we waste just an enormous amount of energy, I know I do, trying to cover up, trying to hide our hurts, trying to sort of fabricate our hang-ups, trying to sort of camouflage our defects. And if you spent as much time, and if I spent as much time on being honest about what's not right in our lives as we do covering up, we'd have a lot more energy to do what's right in our lives. And Rick Warren writes this, that our biggest hurdle to holiness is our desire to look good. Our biggest hurdle to holiness, in other words, to live for God, is our desire to look good. And once we get over that temptation, that hurdle to look good, once we get over that, we're free from a huge roadblock in our lives that stands between us and where God wants us to be. And I would also say that it frees us from the huge roadblock that stands between us and what kind of student, what kind of learner that we can be.